200,000 cold cases in the United States. They won't be solved with CODIS alone.
In 1995, Catherine was a school teacher, and she had a routine week. As far as we know, everything we've read, everything we've done, everything was normal. She goes home, she walks her dog, she has a glass of wine, she talks to her boyfriend, and that's our last known contact with Catherine, with their family.
Police were called to Mary Catherine Edwards' Park Meadow Street townhome in West Beaumont. The 31-year-old was sexually assaulted, her body found in her bathtub.
To spare the gory details, her father did find her deceased, and the investigation began. The investigation, Catherine was a young, great Christian young lady, was not a, what would we call a risky, did not live any kind of risky lifestyle. Early on in the investigation, there was a lot of evidence collected. Of course, at autopsy, there's evidence collected from Catherine's bedroom. There was evidence collected from all over the house. So the case goes on and on. There are, I'd say hundreds of interviews that were conducted from passersby to other school teachers, obviously to boyfriends, to family members, to former boyfriends, that sort of thing. And the case just, lingered. The case went cold after, I'll say they probably worked on this case hard and heavy for 5 years. And that's pretty incredible that they carry one on with no viable leads, no viable suspects at that time. There were some folks that they looked at. There were some things about the crime scene, the MO or at least the MO they thought the perpetrator was, it's well known that there were handcuffs involved in this investigation. So policemen are looked at, jailers are looked at, correctional officers. Beaumont is an area where there's a lot of prisons. So there were people that worked at the prisons. There were just a ton of different people that were looked at just because of the handcuffs. It was a horrendous crime. One of the crime scene police officers, but detectives, is the father of a good friend of mine who's also a state trooper. And his father had dreams about this case for years and years. He attended the autopsy, and his dream was that Catherine was leaning up from the autopsy table to tell him who committed the crime. And that's the way his dream ended every time, was Catherine leaning up. So he was one of the first people that we made contact with. And of course, we made contact with all the old detectives, but that's how this case touched a lot of people. This is a case that gave people nightmares. I mean, that's not a dream, that's a nightmare, that a victim is trying to tell you who killed her and never woke up from it. And that went on for 25 years. We started talking about this case probably 4 or 5 years ago with the district attorney in Jefferson County. We discussed cold cases that were in the area over there in Jefferson County, and this was one that the district attorney had a personal connection to. There were some folks in his office who had either been educated by Catherine or who went to church with her. There were several people who were there, well-known case, and he asked us to look into it. My role in this was with my partners over there, Detective Aaron Llewellyn and Tina Llewellyn, husband and wife team. We basically were charged with, hey, let's get everything out. Let's spread everything out on the table. Let's read every report. Let's clean this file up. In these old files, a lot of times there'll be duplicates of things. So you actually have to take these cases, clean them up, put them back together in a manageable form. That in and of itself takes 40 plus hours to get these cases just lined out, especially one that was worked as hard as Catherine's case was. So initially, it's managing the flow of everything that there is that's already been put together. Sitting down, looking at what evidence is available, what evidence has already been tested, what statements have been taken, who's involved. You really have to wrap your minds around this. We started a conversation, I guess it's been 2 years ago now, with Othram Labs and how, what they do, how they do, and what they the advantage they have. And I'm not a science guy. You know, I don't understand these things. To say I'm a practitioner of DNA would be a stretch. I understand just enough to know that when these smart people like Dr. David Middleman tell me, hey, this is what we're looking for, this is how we're going to get it, I know just enough.
Beaumont had reached out and we had a meeting with the Rangers, the folks over at Beaumont, and Othram, and they reviewed the details of the case and asked if the testing that we do at Othram would be appropriate and helpful in helping them resolve this case.
I don't remember for sure, but it was really fast. I want to say they developed a profile. They said, hey, this is a good profile within a matter of weeks.
My understanding is that as the investigation continued with the leads that came from the profile that we built, they had identified an individual that was a high school classmate of the victim, but his current residence was in Ohio.
So in this case, fortunately, Detective Llewellyn is also a member of the FBI task force. He's on a violent offender task force. And Aaron's the lead investigator on this case now. So Aaron reaches out to his FBI partners in Ohio and requests help in collecting discarded DNA from the suspect on this case. Oftentimes what we'll do is we'll use our partners with the FBI. As a state police officer, we've got connections all over the United States, all over the world for that matter. We'll reach out to someone that we've previously worked with or that's, you know, asked us for help in the past and ask them to do these sorts of things. And in this case, it was, you know, to do surveillance on a suspect and attempt to find him discarding something, you know, throwing something away and getting it. And in this case, it was his trash.
I can tell you from experience in working other cases in which sometimes there's some cross-state interaction. The agencies are really amazing in that they are very good at working together, whether it's to collect information for another agency or to facilitate a continued investigation. So it's been our experience that in other investigations, as it was in this case, law enforcement tend to work very well together, agency to agency, and that teamwork helps take a case further, especially if it steps outside of the state that you're in.
You know, we had to then travel to Ohio. The Jefferson County, Texas Sheriff's Office actually provided us air transport to Ohio to get us up there to hook up with our partners to talk about what they had done before we attempted to interview him. We got together with those guys. We requested the suspect come in and talk with us, and he agreed to do that. Not a whole lot of details I can get into on that, but he did agree to come in and speak with us about the case. And after that interview, he was subsequently arrested on a murder warrant that had been issued in Texas for him.
Breaking developments right now at 6 about a 1995 murder of beloved schoolteacher Mary Catherine Edwards. Jefferson County District Attorney Bob Wortham telling 12 News she knew her attacker. The two attended high school together and for the first time were publicly identifying the suspect. Here he is, Clayton Foreman. He remains in jail in Ohio tonight, charged with capital murder in Edwards' death. Now, also according to the district attorney, Mary Catherine Edwards was even a bridesmaid in his first wedding.
For a guy that's towards the end of his career like I am, having 3, 4, 5 years to go, to see this technology come forward on cases that happened, when I was a child, before I was born, that sort of thing, is absolutely amazing to know what the future rangers and the future detectives are going to have here and how this is going to affect crime solving for our victims and our victims' families.